Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, I want to talk to you about alternative funding sources. We're going to explore creative approaches as an alternative to relying on traditional funding sources, but we're also going to talk about those traditional funding sources as well. So some things that you might want to do and incorporate into your business model. The main funding source for most nonprofits is individual donations. There's actually about 80% of our income comes from individual donations. Donations can be one-time or recurring. They can be online or offline, and they can be received at events such as auctions or galas, or planned giving, which is something that some of us don't think a lot about. Universities are really great at that, but planned giving is something that we need to be thinking about as well. And I think as smaller organizations, we tend not to look at planned giving because it's very long-term. You're looking to set up a charitable remainder trust or put you in their will, something like that. Let's talk about the type of individual donors that we have. We have major donors, and these types of donors are key to us for our organizations, especially when we're starting out. So we want to nurture those relationships, and we want to keep those relationships going because as we grow, we may need additional funding sources for new programs or additional staff or that kind of thing. The other thing, as far as major donors go, you may not think of it, is matching gifts. There are some corporations out there that provide matching gifts to their employees' donations. So that's something that you want to consider. There is a cost to that. Many times you have to go online and say, yes, you received the gift before the employer will match it, but that's something to consider. Then we've got regular donors. These are generally small donations, but they come in frequently. So we really want to focus on retention of these donors, whether they're monthly donors or annual donors. We really want to make sure that we're keeping them engaged and keeping them coming back on a regular basis. Another source of revenue is fee for service, and that means charging for things. Think of a health clinic, a therapist office, those kinds of things where you charge for fee for service. Generally, those are on a sliding scale. It has to be affordable and it has to be below a market rate so that we're not competing with for-profit businesses. Think about alumni. Now, when I say the word alumni, everybody thinks of universities, and universities are really good at cultivating alumni donations. But think about people who've been through your program, who have graduated, who are ready to give back. Reach out to them, and who better than them to become a volunteer, a spokesperson, or commit to donating to your organization. And speaking of volunteers, in the US, 63 million Americans volunteer for nonprofits every year. Now, volunteers can do things where we don't have to have paid staff to do that. So that reduces our program costs. We may have so many volunteers that we have to hire someone to manage those volunteers, but it's still less costly than having all those people either being paid through wages or consulting. And then, like I mentioned before, planned giving. These are larger donations through wills or estates, and they are very long-term types of things. You're basically waiting for someone. The best example I can think of recently is Betty White and her donation to the ASPCA. I mean, she loved animals. She donated during her life, but she left a very large amount of money upon her passing, which encouraged people to then also donate in her memory. So don't forget about those planned giving opportunities. So how are donations coming in? Are they coming in online or offline? Online fundraising, we have our website, which is fairly low cost. We have crowdfunding sources, peer-to-peer fundraising, where you have people go out and talk to their friends and lead them towards our website. We have email marketing, and those recurring gifts get people to sign up so that hits their credit card every month and they don't even have to think about it. Offline fundraising tends to be a little bit more expensive than online fundraising, and we have direct mail campaigns. Of course, we have events which generally bring in a big lump sum at a certain point in time. And then some old school ways of doing it, door to door and phone solicitations. So those are some offline ways of fundraising. I'm not sure I would recommend door to door anymore, even though it's on the list. We have to think about the safety of our volunteers who are doing this. Special fundraising methods, first and foremost, comes to mind is a capital campaign. Generally, there's a time limit, but it's a high impact because you're raising a big dollar amount for a specific purpose. There's a lot of effort that goes into it, but it really does have a high impact for your organization. And it's not something you can do on a regular basis. You really have to raise that kind of money. You really have to have a purpose that you're raising it for. And then finally, there's text to give. It's convenient mobile donation via texting. So those are the kinds of individual donations that we can talk about. Another source I want to talk about is grants. Now, grants come from governmental and private foundations, and we can use them to support our programs, our operations. There are many things, as many contracts and grants as there are out there. That's how many different ways that you can write up a grant. The pros of grants are they don't require repayment. As long as you're using them as outlined and you ensure that you're enhancing that grantor's credibility. They may come back year after year, or maybe it's a one-time project. The cons of a grant is it can be time consuming. Generally, if it's a one-time grant, it's just short-term funding. It's going to happen once and then it goes away, but it could get you through what we need to go through. There was tons and tons of COVID related grants for nonprofits to get up that equipment to allow for that social distancing and those kinds of things. I remember all kinds of plexiglass barriers where you could talk to constituents and be closer than 6 feet, but still be safe. Another source of funding is corporate sponsorships. Now, many corporations want to be good citizens and they give out sponsorships or donations. It could just be a donation that they want to give you. Hopefully, it's on a regular basis. Maybe they sponsor an event. If you have an event coming up or your website, they want to sponsor that event for you. Now, be very careful with the advertising and the sponsorship type of thing. You don't want that to fall into U-bit. But sponsorships are easy to manage. They're very low cost. It gives that donor some recognition for their sponsorship. Cause marketing. Think about a specific program that you have that needs to be funded and additional funding come in. Or if you want to start a new program, you can really market to your donor saying, hey, we're starting, this is wonderful, and we need your donation, and especially to corporate donors. You can get corporate donors to provide pro bono services. Attorneys do it a lot, but IT corporations will do this, or just any other corporation that's related to your organization's mission. They may allow their employees to provide services to you for so many hours a week or month or whatever. So having that, even if it's just coaching services, this is really valuable. Again, we spoke about matching gifts. Of course, those usually generally come from corporations. And then many corporations can provide in-kind support, whether it be for services like we mentioned before, or actual physical types of things that you may need. Maybe you can get a t-shirt company to provide clothing for homeless people, those kinds of things. So think about asking corporations for in-kind support as well. I know we have a corporation here in Indianapolis called Lids, and they do a lot of the big, like the Super Bowl. They do the t-shirts for the Super Bowl. They print up all the t-shirts as if either team wins. So they have these t-shirts from the team that didn't win, and then they donate those because obviously those aren't going to be sold. So that's an example of an in-kind contribution I thought was a really cute story. Bombas socks. There's another one. They donate socks. The only thing they ask is that you don't sell the socks, that you just give them away. So Bombas socks is another one. Buy one sock, give one sock away. They truly do that. I've got a client who's involved with that. It's a wonderful thing when you provide services for people who don't have things like socks. One thing when you're reaching out to these corporations for these types of donations, it's a really good idea to reach out to the corporations that are aware of you. So look at your board members. Who do they have contacts with? Who do they work for? That's a great way to approach both large and small corporations to get those donations. Another funding source I want to talk to you about is membership fees. Now, just having an annual membership fee, this is really ideal for nonprofits if you're offering a benefit. A lot of trade associations have membership fees because the benefit to the individual members of the trade association come with a bigger voice for advocacy, a place to go for training if you need to have continuing education for licensing, those kinds of things. So for example, the AICPA for me, that is basically a trade association. It is national. Every state has their own CPA society. This is where we get, as accountants, we can advocate for tax laws for our clients. We can get our continuing education to keep up on our licenses and those kinds of things. So that is a really great way to bring in revenue for your organization. It's a steady stream of revenue and it fosters relationships with members. So if you do a good job for your members, they're going to come back year after year. Now, having a membership program does require some time and effort to manage it, and there are potential costs associated with that. I want to talk to you about another funding source, which is selling of goods or services. Now, you can do this. You need to comply with the IRS regulations regarding selling goods or services. It may be taxable as UBIT, and you may have to pay tax on that, but the net income after taxes is available for you to use as your mission. The other thing you need to consider if you're selling swag on your website or anywhere else, selling memorabilia, you need to look into your state's requirements for sales tax. Most states do have a requirement that you collect sales tax on the items that you remit. Now, many states, if you're traveling to their state for an event and you have a one-time event, many states will allow you to not remit or collect and remit sales tax for that state that you're in for that event. Many times there's a 30-day exemption. Like if you're in the state for less than 30 days, you don't have to do that. So you really want to look at that state's requirements as well, because you may have to remit those sales tax to your state. And then finally, I want to talk about in-kind donations. You can really benefit from in-kind donations like food, clothing, and services like workshops and coaching services. These can reduce your costs because you don't have to put money towards purchasing or procuring these goods or services. And even if you're not going to use them in your organization, you can donate them to another organization, or they can be used for sale, like in auctions or sales to supplement your income. A perfect example is donating things to the library. My husband has been recently gotten into puzzles and we're accumulating puzzles. We went to the library. I said, "Do you have a puzzle exchange?" They said, "No, unfortunately." But they would take the puzzles as a donation that they could sell at their book fair to raise money for the library. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. Now, of course, there is some cost related to tracking those in-kind or non-cash donations and determining their fair market value. Well, that's a pretty big mix of fundraising sources for your sustainability. We want to help you to build strong relationships with your donors, whether they're individuals, foundations, corporations, or governmental entities. And I hope that this was very helpful. I want to thank you for joining me today. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section. Even though this is pre-recorded, we will get back to you. We always appreciate your likes. And thank you for joining me today. Remember, creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.